Good morning, all. We began this year by asking ourselves to think about the way that our lives have been shaped by people that we have never met. The decisions of your great-grandparents, for example, have an ongoing effect on you, and you may never have met them. So too with unknown people throughout history. That things are not so ill with you and me as they might have been, writes novelist George Eliot, is half owing to the number of people who lived faithfully a hidden life and rest in unvisited tombs. Eliot is making two assertions. One, we don't know all those who lived faithfully. And two, we know that there has been progress, slow and incremental in the moral realm, I'm afraid, but there has been real progress as the moral arc of the universe bends towards justice. If we can't know these people, you might ask, why should we try to recover any of them? Well, the answer to that is twofold. Though we can't recover or trace everyone who has helped shape our lives, we should recover what we can so that we know ourselves just a little bit better. And just to be aware that someone else's existence helped shape our lives, even if they remain unknown, should make us humble in our indebtedness to others and in the limits of our knowledge. The second reason we should try to recover others is that such an exercise makes us aware that we are, in every choice, in every decision we make, influencing others who we will never meet, and that most of us will rest in unvisited tombs. It would be wonderful to think that before we reach that resting place, that we have improved the lives of those who follow us. These two directions, the past and the future, looking back to see how we have been influenced, and looking forward to see that what we might do influences others, are always connected by the present moment. And our debt to the past and our obligation to the future are connected by the virtue of humility. What we owe others for our station here, and what we need to take responsibility for others and their future. In each decision that we make, in each conversation that we have, in every subject that we study, in every action, tweet, Snapchat, airdrop, we create the future. That should make us reverent, humble before that awesome responsibility. And we are thankful for the opportunity to take that responsibility for others because we don't have to go it alone. 825 years ago, in 1193, the newly ordained Father John de Matha, still almost 500 years from being canonized a saint, had the vision that would lead him to found the Order of the Most Holy Trinity and of the Captives, the formal name for the Trinitarians. You'll notice that he didn't found the Trinitarians to become a saint. His recognition as a saint is the byproduct of his commitment to human freedom. John de Matha's profound insight that it is the extraordinary gift of human freedom to turn to God that prevents God from being a tyrant. And such freedom must be granted here on earth from each of us to each of us. This is a major step forward in the history of ideas. For John de Matha knew, too, that the gift of freedom comes the gift of responsibility and the gift of accountability. And the Trinitarians have, for their glorious history of 820 years, sought in every ministry they practice, parish work, diplomacy, trade, work on behalf of religious liberty, medicine, hospital chaplaincy, soup kitchens, prison ministry, and here at de Matha to share those gifts John de Matha needed help from his first companions and from the patrons who supported his ministry. And while we celebrate today the influence that John de Matha has on our lives, let's also remember someone who influenced his life. On this day, 820 years ago, December the 17th, 1198, Pope Innocent III officially chartered the Trinitarians. Now, Pope Innocent III had been Pope for 11 months, and he was 38 years old when he made the Trinitarians the first friars in the history of the Church. Up until that time, religious orders lived in community, like the Benedictines or the Trappists. They tended to themselves and prayer. Diocesan priests lived in parishes and ministered to the needs of the people. Friars lived in community and ministered to the needs of the people. After recognizing the Trinitarians, Innocent III eventually chartered the Franciscans and other religious orders, and it seems clear that he wished to expand the ways that the gifts of the Church, that the living of the gospel might be rendered. It's an extraordinary insight for someone who's 38 years old. Before he was elected Pope, the then Cardinal Lotario de Conti had written an important work on the misery of the human condition. The Middle Ages, as you well know, times of plague, little learning, the human condition was indeed miserable. That more than 700 handwritten copies of this book survive, along with countless references to it, shows how influential it was. And he planned to write a companion book, which he would call On the Dignity of Human Nature. But because he was elected Pope, he never got the chance to finish it. But what if, in some ways, his actions as the Pope, the creation of the Trinitarians, were the text that he planned but never wrote? What if we are the living text on the dignity of human nature? Now, Innocent III was by no means perfect. His anti-Semitism, though common at the time, is jarring and reprehensible. In the south of France, there were a group of people called the Cathars, or the Albigensians, who preached a dualistic notion that there are two gods or principles at war in the universe, good and evil. And Innocent III was determined to wipe out this heresy, and he unfortunately turned to violence and persecution that is really disturbing to contemplate. But he called for church reform. He encouraged and supported the opening of schools so that there would be an increase of learning. And he insisted that those who become priests have more education and achieve a higher moral standard than those they would lead. If you want to lead, you have to be better educated. You have to be a better person. There are times when the burden of being Pope was enormous. And in his diary, he wrote, "So much must I live for others that almost I am a stranger to myself." And he was capable of enormous compassion regarding the mystery of human suffering, and especially the suffering of those who are innocent. God forbid that all children, of whom daily so great a multitude die, would perish, but that also for these, the merciful God, who wishes no one to perish, has procured some remedy unto salvation. How extremely modern that sentiment sounds in a world where today 16,000 children will die from hunger and hunger-related diseases. The Trinitarians have long recognized that we could choose at least some of those who influence us, and we can choose our actions which will influence others. They unite the whole of the past and the whole of the future in an ongoing present of service. So when we commit to the food drive, to the coat drive, the toy drive, when we walk on behalf of various causes, when we go on retreat to know ourselves and God better, when we live the gospel that was proclaimed today, that we see Christ in the least of our brothers, we demonstrate that we have inherited and that we understand our Trinitarian history. And we look forward to a better world that we will help create. Perhaps no religious order in history has so clearly taken upon itself such an ambitious mission, one that in every particular chooses to respond to the immediate needs of the surrounding people. On this day, in this present moment, let us thank those intellectual and spiritual descendants of John de Matha, the Trinitarians gathered with us, for their gifts to us, and let us look forward to passing those gifts to people we will never meet. Please rise and join me in thanking the Trinitarians.
I can get away with saying something because I'm the chairman of the board, so thank you, Father James. Before we have our final blessing and then there's the concert, I certainly would like to thank Father James, the president of Matha, and Dr. McMahon, our principal, for inviting me to come and be with you today and to celebrate this liturgy with all of you. I was thinking for the past number of days, what was I going to say? I was in India for 2 weeks, just coming back this past Thursday evening, and so it was on my mind. What was I going to say? And I kept thinking of how difficult this is in one way, being the boss and having to stand here and say something of significance to all of you, but then how easy it is, because for me, it's like coming back home. As a number of my years as a seminarian and then as a priest were spent here in service to young men like yourselves, to some of your sons and some of our faculty members, to you when I was here. And so it certainly is good to be back. There was a movie from the 1940s called The Bells of St. Mary's, about a priest, a young priest who was sent to a parish where there was a school, a Catholic school, and he had to address the children. And the sisters were all busy about doing things, and sister was saying, "Now say something to the children, Father." And he was nervous, and so finally he just said, "It's a holiday. Everybody go home. It's a holiday." Well, I can't get away with saying that to you. I wish I could. But I would like to offer to Father James and Dr. McMahon, when there is an appropriate time, to give you a day off. So remember that, okay? Dr. McMahon, Father James. And I will ask them, now, did you give them a day off or not? So I will check up on that, follow that up. All right? Okay. Yeah. Thank you for the warm welcome and for living out the vision and the mission of St. John de Matha in all that you do. Let's stand now for the blessing. The Lord be with you.